So growing up in a home where mental health was not focused on, and there was just a general lack of empathy, even for non-serious, mild mental health conditions. And I never want to, compare traumas and anxieties, but I'd say half the people on this planet suffer from some form of anxiety, feeling blue most of their lives, just a general lack of not having energy or time for themselves. So I do believe 1 out of 2 people are basically living on fumes. They barely have any time or no time at all for themselves. They basically are pressured, and especially if you're a woman, to being the last of everything. Putting your needs last, doing everything you can to make men feel comfortable and satisfied and loved, and women always get the end of the stick. Because there is no equality in marriage or in any partnership unless it's a professional partnership. And just growing up in an environment that makes mental illness a joke, or even worse, never talking about it. Imagining and living like mental illness, that exists. And it's so damaging because going through life, and depression can hit at any age, any sex, any group of people. Some of the most successful people on the planet suffer from depression, suicidal tendencies, or a spectrum of issues. And anyone who isn't in 100% good health is going to feel a strain on their mental health because the anxiety of being ill or having an autoimmune condition. My mother and sister have those due to long-term COVID. The amount of stress that is put on people's bodies, muscles, and heart is just unimaginable. And if you're not in perfect health, you're adding another layer of stress, anxiety, and just downright fear inside your body. And just recently, we've gotten into mental health days, privately or professionally. We no longer have to suffer in silence. But if you're in fundamentalist, really old-fashioned, man-centered patriarchy religions, specifically in Christianity, you're not going to consistently hear about mental illness issues. And silence, I think, kills more people than being misinformed about something. Because if somebody goes through life thinking that no one ever talks about this issue that I'm having, no one else has admitted privately or publicly that they suffer from something like this, that alone is so isolating and detrimental to people's mental health and personality. At least now we have celebrities and people with platforms that have admitted that they suffer from stuff like lupus and bipolar and Lou Gehrig's disease. Simple medical issues that can take a big toll on people's mental health. And then there's other people who suffer from psychosis. I have a member in my family who's a veteran that has psychosis and psychotic episodes. And until someone in my family had it, and we really couldn't hide it, which is terrible, we started having conversations. But I was 29 years of age before someone ever mentioned something that even remotely resembled a mental health crisis. So if you're never taught or even instructed about these things in a religious home, 1 out of 5 teenagers, on average, suffer from crippling depression or depression of any kind. And it stems all the way into anxiety, panic attacks, poor performance. And kids aren't getting this kind of information at home any more than they're getting the safe sex talk at home. And when you live in an environment that gives you no sex ed, no mental health factual information, you're not really taught about your body. The only thing I was ever taught is the difference between men and women's bodies. That's it. That's like buying electronic. They tell you the difference between an iPhone 15 and an AirPod. They don't tell you how to use it. They don't tell you how to plug it in, to charge it, how to keep it safe by putting a case on it, or how you're not supposed to use it. It just says how these two things are different. I mean, how are you supposed to be a healthy, full functioning, happy adult, or even a teenager, if you're taught nothing? And kids grow up in religious environments and secular environments where it's just silence. There is no dialogue. And if there is, who knows if it's factual? I mean, you can put the fear of God in somebody by telling them improper or unfactual facts about mental illness. And when every time mental illness is mentioned in a Bible, it's always a punishment, or it's not anything that's positive. That's not helping. And on average, I've read in a lot of medical magazines by hospitals that are as well respected as Johns Hopkins, that women are more prone to having depression and anxiety, while men are more likely to have narcissism and negative thoughts and different things. That's not to say that men don't get depressed. Women just seem to be more diagnosed with it than men. And I honestly don't know how the 1 out of 5 kids with depression grows up in fundamentalist Christianity. I guess the answer is 25% didn't, because they didn't make it. And when you're in an environment that creates religious OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where if you're not perfect, you're risking going to hell, that adds a whole nother layer on depression. When you're taught, or the lack of teaching, makes you feel that depression is basically a judgment from God for not being faithful in your religion, not talking to God enough, not having enough faith. I mean, it's classic gaslighting. Nothing you do or don't do makes you deserve having an illness that has nothing to do with you besides your body not working properly. And I was diagnosed with religious OCD. I have internalized being perfect, and there's no margin for being a failure, because humans fail all the time. Some of the most influential men in American history were failures until they became what they wanted to be. Abraham Lincoln is a good example. He was a failure his entire life until he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. When you're not allowed to fail, and when you do fail, you're made to feel like you're the worst kind of Christian imaginable. There's nothing but shame and guilt can grow from that environment. This is so toxic, and not all churches do this. But I think even churches that don't teach this kind of thing that creates religious OCD, it's just a byproduct of being taught you are a sinful, rotten human being. I mean, that's not going to help anyone's mental health. And when you're taught in fundamentalist Christianity that you are inherently evil and worthless without Jesus, you create a problem where a lot of these people have nowhere to go but up because they are in such low psychological environment. There's nowhere to go but up because they have such a low opinion of themselves. There's so much internalized hatred for themselves. I mean, if you're in a fundamentalist religion where you are taught most times from the cradle, you are a worthless, evil human being who can do no good and give the world nothing worth lasting, no earthly legacy can exist because you're a worthless human being. I mean, I don't know much about psychology, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to cause someone to develop healthy views of themselves. And I've been in therapy for 3 years, and the level of self-hatred that people like myself have for themselves is due to religion. Some of it is due to our culture's worship of perfection and youth. And this is very much alive in Christianity. Christians worship symbols of youth, the Virgin Mary. They worship purity. They worship the sterile, stereotypical heterosexual people. What if somebody, like a woman, who from the cradle is taught you have to be perfect, but you can't be too perfect. You have to be out, but you can't be loud. You can be successful, but not too successful. I mean, you cannot win. And if you're too perfect,